What if everything you've ever taken for granted as reality was not reality at all, but a kind of elaborate stage set, a convincing illusion maintained by the mind? Consider how easily we accept the world as it appears, the solidity of objects, the certainty of time, the conviction that I am a separate individual moving through a universe that is indifferent and external to me. We rarely question it because it feels so normal, so obvious. And yet beneath that feeling of certainty lies the greatest deception of all. The shocking truth is that what you call reality is not what is actually there. It is what your mind constructs. Every sound, every shape, every sensation is filtered, labeled, judged and packaged before you even notice it. You think you see the world, but in truth you see your interpretation of it, a version shaped by habit, memory and language. That is why two people can look at the same situation and live in completely different universes. You believe you are seeing what is out there, but you are staring at a mirror polished by your own thoughts. Imagine for a moment that you had never been taught the names of things, never instructed that a tree is a tree, or that time is divided into past, present and future. What would the world look like then? Stripped of labels, the ordinary would appear extraordinary, pulsing with mystery and depth. The hidden truth, the one few dare to face, is that reality is not a static collection of things but an endless process, fluid and alive. And here is the secret you were never told. What you call reality is inseparable from you. You are not an observer standing apart from it, watching it unfold. You are it, happening in this very moment. To realize this is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it dissolves everything you thought you knew. Liberating because it reveals you were never separate, never lost, never a stranger in the universe. You are the universe, awakening to itself through these eyes. From the moment we are born, we are trained to approach the world through a grid of concepts, words and categories. You look at something and almost instantly, without effort, a label appears in your mind. A shape with branches and leaves, tree. A moving figure with 2 legs and arms, person. A collection of thoughts, memories and sensations, me. This seems perfectly natural, and yet hidden in this process is the reason why most of us never truly encounter reality. We do not see the thing itself. We see the word, the idea, the mental image that overlays it. What you call tree is not what is actually there. It is a convenient shorthand, a symbol that stands in for something immeasurably more complex and alive. The real tree is not just the word or the concept, but an ever-changing dance of sunlight, water, growth and decay. Yet most of the time we miss this dance because the concept arrives first and obscures what is directly present. This habit is so deeply ingrained that we hardly notice it. We think we are perceiving reality, but what we are really perceiving is our commentary about it. Our senses provide raw experience, but before we can even rest in that experience, the mind rushes to interpret, to categorize, to place it into its pre-existing framework. It is as though we are always looking through a veil made of language and memory. The label substitutes for the living reality, and the map replaces the territory. We begin to mistake the representation for the thing itself. Over time, we become convinced that the world as described is the world as it is. And so we live in a second-hand reality, an echo chamber of concepts rather than the vibrancy of what actually exists. This is the common state of mind, a trance in which we confuse names with truth and miss the raw immediacy of life unfolding right before our eyes. Think of it this way. When you are hungry, you can look at a restaurant's menu and read the descriptions of the dishes. You can imagine the taste of the pasta, the texture of the bread, the sweetness of the dessert. But no matter how vivid your imagination is, reading the menu will never satisfy your hunger. The words are only symbols pointing toward the meal. They are not the meal itself. Yet most of us spend our lives chewing on menus, mistaking the description for the experience. In the same way, when we say we know reality, we often mean we know the names, the categories, the concepts, but we rarely taste the reality directly. Another image. Imagine staring at a map of a country. You can trace the rivers with your finger, memorize the cities and study the mountain ranges, but the map is flat, lifeless ink on paper. walking through the forests, feeling the humidity, climbing the jagged peaks. That is the territory itself. The two are not the same. The tragedy is that we forget the difference. We talk about reality as though we are experts because we've memorized the map. But the awakened perspective is like stepping off the paper and into the living land itself. Or picture someone who has only ever seen photographs of the ocean. They may know every angle, every shade of blue captured in the images. But the moment they step into the surf, the cold salt water rushing over their skin, the sound of waves crashing in their ears, the taste of salt on their lips, they realize they knew nothing before. That is the difference between thinking about reality and living it directly. Words, concepts, and images can be useful, but they are not substitutes for the immediacy of experience. The hidden truth is simple, yet shocking. Most of us are trapped in menus, maps, and photographs while reality waits, vast and alive just beyond the veil of thought. Everyone has had fleeting moments when the veil of concepts slips away and life shines through with startling clarity. Perhaps it was when you fell deeply in love, and for a time the ordinary world seemed drenched in light, every detail vibrating with significance. A simple glance, a touch, the sound of laughter. Suddenly everything felt raw, immediate and unfiltered, as if you were seeing it all for the very first time. Or maybe it happened in a moment of danger, when adrenaline flooded your body and the usual chatter of thought disappeared. In that heightened state, reality didn't arrive as words or categories, but as a direct, undeniable presence. Every sound, every movement, every sensation was intensified, leaving no room for abstraction. In those brief seconds, you were not thinking about life, you were fully immersed in it. We also taste this quality of awareness when confronted by overwhelming beauty. Standing before a vast mountain range, or watching the sea at sunset, there are moments when thought falls silent. The boundary between you and the scene blurs, and you feel not like an observer but like part of the magnificence itself. Children live in this state more naturally than adults. Watch a child chasing a butterfly or staring into a puddle of water. They are not analyzing, labeling, or comparing. They are simply absorbed, surrendered to what is in front of them. There is no separation between subject and object, only raw experience unfolding. But as we grow, we are taught to substitute words for things, to measure, evaluate, and interpret. Slowly, the immediacy fades, replaced by a constant commentary about life rather than life itself. And yet those flashes remain in memory, those rare intervals when the world was alive, mysterious, and unmediated. They remind us of something we once knew instinctively, that reality, when seen without filters, is infinitely more vibrant and profound than anything we could ever think about it. The shocking truth, the one hidden in plain sight, is that what we call reality is not reality itself, but a construction of the mind. Every sound you hear, every sight you see, every sensation you feel is instantly filtered, interpreted, and woven into a story by your brain. You think you are encountering the world directly, but in fact you are encountering a version sculpted by thought, memory, and expectation. The world of things, solid, separate, labeled, is not what truly exists. What exists is a seamless flowing process, a field of energy and awareness without boundaries. It is only when the mind carves this living flow into parts, naming one fragment tree, another sky, another me, that the illusion of separateness is born. This illusion is so convincing that we rarely notice it. The voice in your head narrates endlessly, judging, comparing, remembering, anticipating, and you mistake that voice for yourself. But if you pause and observe, you will see the truth. You can listen to the voice, which means you are not the voice. Thoughts appear and disappear. Feelings rise and fade. Sensations shift moment by moment. And yet something constant remains, the awareness in which all of it unfolds. That awareness is not separate from reality. It is reality looking at itself. The idea of being a self locked inside a body, separate from everything else, is only a story the mind tells. Like a character in a play, the ego has a name, a history, ambitions, but it is not what you fundamentally are. What you are is the open field in which the character appears, the stage upon which the entire drama of existence is enacted. To see this is to awaken from the trance of separateness. The shocking revelation is not that you are small and powerless in a vast, indifferent universe, but that you are inseparable from the very fabric of existence itself, an expression of the same consciousness that moves the stars, the waves, and the beating of your heart. If you follow this realization to its depth, the implications are staggering. The line you believe exists between yourself and the world begins to dissolve. You breathe in, and the air becomes part of you. You breathe out, and what was you becomes part of the atmosphere. You eat an apple, and it is transformed into your blood and flesh. The supposed boundary of skin that marks me and not me is revealed as a practical convenience, not an ultimate truth. In reality, there is no sealed container called you existing apart from everything else. You are a continuous process in dialogue with the whole cosmos. You are as inseparable from the world as a wave is from the ocean, unique in form, yes, but never independent of the movement that gives rise to it. When you see this, the illusion of separateness begins to fade, and a new vision appears. Everything is interconnected. Just as the crest of a wave cannot exist without the trough, light cannot exist without shadow, and life cannot exist without death. These pairs are not enemies or opposites. They are complementary expressions of a single reality. This means that what we call self and other are not two but one movement viewed from different angles. To harm another is to harm yourself, not as a moral principle, but as a simple recognition of fact. The hand does not cut itself without consequence to the body. In the same way, violence toward the world is violence toward your own being. And here lies the most radical implication. Consciousness is not a late byproduct of a mechanical universe, some accidental spark that appeared in human brains. No, consciousness is the very foundation from which the universe arises. It is the light in which stars burn and rivers flow, the intelligence that grows trees and heals wounds. What you truly are is not a fragile ego adrift in a meaningless cosmos, but the very awareness in which cosmos and ego alike appear. This shift in perspective reveals that reality is not something out there to be observed. It is what you are, infinite and indivisible. We move through life with a handful of unquestioned assumptions, and these assumptions shape everything we believe about ourselves and the world. The first is the belief that I am in control of my life. You tell yourself you are the captain of your ship, the thinker of your thoughts, the doer of your actions. But pause for a moment and look closely. Do you actually decide to think the thoughts that arise in your mind, or do they simply appear? Did you choose your desires, your fears, your instincts? Your heart beats without your command, your cells divide without your knowledge, your next breath comes unbidden. The feeling of control is strong, but the reality is that life is happening through you, not by you. You are not the controller. You are the process itself. The second belief is that I am separate from the world. From early childhood, we are told that there is a me inside this body, and everything else is not me. This division seems obvious, yet it collapses the moment you examine it. The air you breathe moves freely in and out of your lungs. The food you eat becomes indistinguishable from your body. The sunlight that nourishes the plants becomes your energy. Where does you end and the world begin? The truth is that no such boundary exists. The sense of being an isolated entity is a mental construct, a story repeated so often it feels real. But peel away the story, and what you find is participation, interconnection, inseparability. And then there is time, the belief that reality stretches in a line from past to present to future. We are taught to think of ourselves as travelers, moving along this line, carrying the weight of memory and the burden of anticipation. But the past exists only as recollection, the future only as imagination, both occurring right now in thought. The only reality is the present, this moment unfolding. The flow of time is not something you are trapped in. It is something your mind constructs to organize experience. These cherished beliefs, control, separation, linear time, are not truths, but useful illusions. They help us navigate daily life, but when mistaken for ultimate reality, they blind us. The shock comes when you realize that the foundations of your worldview are not solid ground, but shifting sand. We have been conditioned to believe that time is a river carrying us along, sweeping us from the past into the future, with no possibility of escape. We imagine ourselves as passengers on this relentless current, always looking backward at what has been or forward at what might come. But if you pay close attention, you will discover that this image of time is not something you directly experience, it is something you think about. The past is not here except as memory arising in your mind now. The future is not here except as anticipation or imagination, again arising now. In other words, both past and future are shadows cast by thought in the present moment. What actually exists is always and only this. This breath, this sound, this sensation, this awareness. Yet most of us live as though the present were an inconvenient doorway, merely a bridge between what has already happened and what we hope will happen. We rarely stop to notice that life does not occur in the past or in the future, but only ever here. Think of how often your mind drags you into regret over what you should have done or anxiety about what you must do tomorrow. While the body is firmly rooted in now, the mind runs endlessly in circles, missing the miracle that is unfolding in plain sight. The awakened person is not someone who has transcended time as a cosmic feat. They are someone who has recognized the simple truth that reality is always immediate. They inhabit the now not because it is fashionable or mystical, but because it is the only place where existence actually happens. To settle into this awareness is to see that the ordinary moment is extraordinary. The play of light on a wall, the rhythm of your breathing, the feeling of your feet on the ground. These are not trivial details, but the very essence of reality. Once you see this, the desperate chase through time begins to lose its grip. The past and future remain useful as references, but they no longer imprison you. Life opens vivid and alive here and now, where it has always been. When this recognition dawns, it does not remain a dry philosophical concept. It transforms the way life feels in every moment. The constant weight of anxiety begins to loosen, because much of that anxiety was born from believing yourself to be a small, isolated fragment, trying desperately to control an uncontrollable world. Fear loses its grip because the fear was tied to the illusion of separation, the idea of a fragile me struggling against a vast, indifferent universe, and the endless urge to control, to manipulate every outcome, to hold the future tightly in your hands. It fades because you see that you were never the one holding it in the first place. What replaces all of this is a kind of effortless presence. Life begins to flow with a natural rhythm. Decisions are still made, actions still happen, but they come with a sense of ease rather than strain. Spontaneity returns, like the carefree playfulness of childhood, not because responsibilities vanish, but because you are no longer burdened by the illusion that you must carry the world on your shoulders. You see that the world is carrying itself, and you are part of that movement. Each moment unfolds as if it were perfectly complete, and you no longer feel the same desperate need to bend it to your will. And reality itself appears differently, less like a rigid machine and more like a dance. The play of light through trees, the rise and fall of your breath, the laughter of a stranger, even the challenges and pains of life, all of it is seen as movements in a cosmic rhythm, interconnected notes, in a song too vast to be grasped by thought. To live this way is not to retreat from the world, but to engage with it more deeply, without the armor of fear or the chains of control. It is to step into the dance, to feel life's spontaneity pulsing through you, and to realize that you were never separate from the music. Life becomes lighter, freer, more intimate, not because it has changed, but because you have seen through the illusion that kept you from tasting it fully. By now, the picture begins to come together, and what once seemed fragmented reveals itself as one seamless truth. You do not encounter reality directly in the way you thought. What you see most of the time are concepts, labels, and interpretations that your mind places over the rawness of life. The tree is not the word tree. The person is not the category friend or stranger. Even what you call yourself is more an idea than a reality. This is the first crack in the illusion, to realize that what you thought was reality is mostly a veil of concepts laid across it. From here, the deeper revelation emerges. The separate self you believe yourself to be is a fiction. It is not that you do not exist. It is that you are not the isolated character you imagine. The ego, with its voice and story, is a role being played within something larger. The real you is not a container inside the universe, but the field of awareness in which the universe itself arises. The sensation of being cut off, locked inside your own skin, is a dream. Waking from that dream, you find yourself woven into everything. And that leads naturally to the recognition of unity. What appears as countless separate things, self and other, inside and outside, life and death, are not separate at all, but interdependent aspects of one movement. Like the crest and trough of a single wave, they define each other and cannot exist apart. The universe is not a collection of fragments, but a continuous dance. Alongside this realization comes the unraveling of time. Past and future are discovered to be thoughts happening now. The present moment is not a fleeting point between two infinities, but the entirety of reality, always complete, always whole. Time is a useful story for the mind, but the truth of life is now. And at the heart of all of it lies consciousness itself, the silent presence that notices thoughts, feelings, sensations, and the world. This awareness is not something you possess. It is what you are. Everything arises within it, and without it, nothing could be known at all. To see this clearly is to awaken, to understand that the hidden truth about reality is not distant or mystical, but immediate and obvious. You are not apart from it, you are it. And so we arrive at the threshold where words must fall away. Everything you've just heard, every explanation, every metaphor, every carefully chosen phrase is only the menu, not the meal. It is the pointing finger, not the moon. The shocking truth about reality cannot be contained in language, no matter how poetic or precise. Reality is not a concept to be held in your mind. It is the immediacy of this very moment, alive and pulsing right now. All these descriptions have been like maps, but no map can ever substitute for stepping into the living territory yourself. Pause for just a moment. Notice the breath entering and leaving your body. Notice the subtle play of sensations, the sounds around you, the simple fact of awareness itself. This is not something distant or mystical. It is here now, unmediated. When you rest in this presence without trying to grasp it, you see that the universe is not something out there confronting you. It is not an external stage on which you play a role. It is you unfolding. It is reality looking at itself through these eyes, hearing itself through these ears, breathing itself in and out through these lungs. There is no need to chase after enlightenment or to seek some extraordinary vision. The truth you were never told is that nothing is missing. What you have been searching for has been present all along, quietly shining beneath the noise of thought. The end of the search comes when you realize there was never anything outside of this awareness to find. So let these words dissolve like mist in the morning sun, leaving only the clarity of direct experience. Look, breathe, feel, right here, right now. That is the only place reality ever reveals itself, and in that revelation you discover the most astonishing secret. You are not a fragment lost in an alien cosmos. You are the cosmos awake to itself, playing the game of forgetting and remembering. And in this recognition, life becomes not a problem to solve, but a sacred dance to live.